Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
So, Melanie, this is another week gone by here, and another week where it's the middle of summer, and we were just commenting on, like, we are pretty much spring and fall people.
We are spring and fall people.
It's hard to be motivated to get out of the house and go places when it's 98 degrees, as it will be on Monday and Tuesday of this week, and the kids are melting.
I was commenting on the fact that I'm a native Texan, and New England summers to me feel very moderate. Like even today, it was like 90 degrees and I'm sitting outside in my hammock with my glass of ice water, but the breeze is nice and cool and it just feels really pleasant to me. And then the children come trooping outside and it's so hot out here. my little New Englander children. So while I would be totally up for like hikes in the woods and stuff, even when it's in the 80s and 90s, as long as you've got enough water, I'm fine. Like I even wear jeans in the summertime in Texas heat, but our children are made of, well,
in the
not
winter, they are
stuff.
sterner stuff.
In the winter, they are definitely much hardier than I am.
I'm going to stand up for my northerner Yankee roots, but yes.
But they do not handle the heat well. We have one child in particular who is a wilting flower in the heat.
Yes.
And so it definitely does modify what we do. Like in the wintertime, we don't do as much outdoorsy stuff as we probably should because I'm a wimp.
So excuse me, I had something in my throat.
and in the summer, we don't do as much outdoorsy stuff as I would like because my kids are wimps.
That's right. I'm glad I didn't get labeled that. Now, see, I'm a big man, and that means I sweat in the heat, but it doesn't prevent me from going out in it and doing stuff. I mean,
right.
So you're right. I mean, I was outside with you today. I was sitting on the patio reading my book. I had a giant iced tea with me and enjoying it. And you're right. There was a really nice breeze. Yeah, it was hot, but it's summer. It's like I survive winter so that I can be outside for the other 3 seasons as much as possible. And that's the thing. It's like our kids are cooped up inside all winter long, and I just want them to go outside when it's nice weather, when it's sunny. So I'm with you on that. And then of course all this other stuff that we can't go places, it doesn't help with that. I mean, our springtime going places got, of course, slammed, hammered, knocked off course, and so who knows how our fall going places thing will go, but. Yeah, well, we got to figure out a way to get out into at least hiking places again.
Well, yeah.
Well, the other problem with that again is in order to go to some of the places we want to go, you actually have to schedule. You have to like sign up for a time slot, which is not conducive.
Not conducive to spontaneity.
Yes. Anyway, so surviving the heat, surviving the virus.
In other words, that's a very long way of saying we didn't do much this week.
Yes. We hunkered down. We did play Dungeons and Dragons again, though.
That's true.
And they had more fun this time, even. And I think part of that was because we kind of knew what to expect, and I was getting a little better at being the DM, and Bella was really getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think of all of them, she's the one who's most into playing a role, like taking on a character.
She's also had more experience doing various things.
She did the live action role playing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm also kind of, most of them are below the recommended age of, I think it's like 12 and up.
Right.
But I'm kind of like nudging them a little bit. So what does the party do? What's over there? Maybe you want to look in that direction. They
need some gentle prompting.
Yes, they need to figure out how to do it. They don't even know what they're supposed to even do or think about as they're doing it. So, but we're having fun, and we're definitely gonna take this with us on vacation. Although I've promised not to make them play 8 hours a day.
Right.
So we really haven't been doing much. But one thing we did do was we actually did some cleaning up. We have these spurts of cleaning corners, really, right?
I suppose.
It's kind of, I forget what motivated this particular one, but sometimes it's motivated by I'm looking for something and there's a big pile of stuff over there and I think it might be in that pile.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you were looking for though.
I think I was looking for ink, printer ink,
right?
For the printer. And I started digging around like, what is this here? This doesn't even need to be here. This should be in the office. And what are all these hats? Why are there winter hats on top of the printer? Put them in the baskets for the winter clothes. And then I just started digging. And then I'm like, what is down in this? And it was a bin that
has been there since we moved in.
Yeah. That's pretty accurate. So it's been in this corner for 12 years, covered, and we had enough dust on it to prove it. And so I'm digging. I'm like, oh, these old pictures. They're old photos. Like there's one of your favorite photos of your parents together. There was a photo of my dad on top of St. Peter's Basilica.
Right. They just never. We moved in and they never got like hung or put up or anything. Yeah.
Some pictures of my nieces and nephews and that sort of thing. But one thing I found in there that I had been looking for, I actually was looking for this
not too long ago.
For Scouts, because I wanted to show it to my den of my Cub Scouts. It's a flag that flew over the USS Constitution. That's right, old Ironsides, the oldest commissioned warship in active service in the world, which is birthed here in Boston. It flew over the Constitution on the 4th of July, 2008. I want to say.
I think that's right. That was the year Sophie was born.
Right, and so to kind of go back to that date. My dad used to live near a former commander of the USS Constitution in the same town. He got to know. My dad is one of those old Italian guys who gets to know everybody.
Yeah.
My dad knows people everywhere we go.
Not to mention that your dad was also former Navy.
He was also in the Navy and Korean War vet. And so he got to know this captain of the ship. And he told my dad that anytime you want, every year on the 4th of July, they do a turnaround cruise for the Constitution, which is they put a tug on her, they tow her out into the harbor on a little parade, they turn her around, they bring her back in, and they have her go in the opposite direction so that she weathers evenly on both sides.
Because if you had one side that was facing out and one side facing towards the pier, the side facing out towards the ocean would get more weathered,
wear out faster. It's a 200-year-old ship, 200 plus. So you gotta be careful with it. So they do a turnaround cruise every year, and it's very popular. There's a lottery to get tickets to go on board, but also former captains, current crew, all that sort of stuff. They get a number of tickets. And so this captain told my dad, anytime you want to go, I'll give you a couple tickets. And so my dad was like, I'd like to go this 4th of July. And he asked, would any of you like to go to the children? And I immediately said, me.
Of course you did.
I did. And so my dad and I went to the ship, and you get on board early, and they have a ceremony. They have like a band, a brass band. They pipe aboard the dignitaries. There's like the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Navy. And they have like these captains and admirals, and they each get like a certain number of bells. They ring the bell 7 times for an admiral, and that sort of thing. And then they bring them on in order of precedence. So like captains first, then admirals, then congressmen or something. I forget the exact order. But the last ones to come aboard are Medal of Honor winners.
The last being the most important.
Most important.
Not least important.
And they get the most bells or salutes, the firing of the salute. They get a 21-gun salute, essentially. Like, that's the highest level, Medal of Honor winners. And that was really cool. In fact, I think they were all there because there had been a Medal of Honor Society meeting in Boston, like right before. So they were still there from that. So cool. So then the ship goes out, and there's all these people in the harbor, and then there's a fireboat shooting water everywhere, and there was a Navy carrier, like a amphibious carrier in the like a helicopter carrier in the harbor, I think that year, and all these other ships and saluting it, and then when they get out there to the furthest point out near Castle Island, they fire a 21 gun, like a 21 shot salute to America from below decks, and I videoed it and posted it on YouTube, so I got this ancient YouTube video of the guns firing on there, and that was really cool. It was really loud. And then the whole time they're throwing flags up, the flagpole, an American flag up, they let it fly, then they bring it back down, they fold it up, and then you can purchase it with the proceeds supporting the Constitution Museum or something like that. So I bought one. And so I have this flag that flew over the USS Constitution on the 4th of July and a certificate, and it's been sitting in this box this whole time. And so I said, I want to display this. I'm proud of this. So I bought on Amazon. It's a display case. So it's a triangular display case for the folded flag, and then a space for the certificate that goes inside. So that's actually coming this week. So hopefully I'll be able to hang it up and get a picture of that online. But very exciting. I was very happy. I love the Constitution. It's one of my favorite things in Boston. So I love seeing her every time we travel north through the city over the bridge. And in fact, I used to see her when I worked in Charlestown. I would see her every day. It was really neat. I have to confess, she was my first love.
Uh-huh.
So the other excitement this week was a little excitement yesterday while I was getting the grill going for dinner. I noticed this big rabbit in the yard, big bunny. And we've seen this bunny going back and forth recently, right?
We've seen a rabbit or rabbits. They all look
right.
the same.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Frequently in the yard, grazing on the clovers and things.
And there are plenty of rabbits in our neighborhood. Like, I've seen rabbits in our neighborhood a lot. We have a lot of wild animals in our neighborhood, including coyotes, apparently, which I haven't seen, but reports from neighbors. So I saw this rabbit, and it was sitting there. It was, like, really close. It wasn't that far away. And I'm like, that's really weird. It's not running from me. It's just sitting there, and it's nibbling on the grass and kind of bouncing around. And then it bounces over to this one area, and then I think Sophie came out and a couple of the other kids, and they were watching it with me. It was less than 10 feet away in the grass. And Sophie's like, what's moving in the grass? Like, something in the grass was moving around. And so the bunny, after sitting there for a while, bounced away. And so we went over to look what was moving in the grass, and there's a nest. And the nest was moving around. I'm like, okay, either that's like a snake or something in the grass, although I'm not sure the bunny would stay there. But we're pretty sure that it's the bunny's nest in the middle of the yard.
It's definitely a rabbit nest. It's got grass on the top, and it's lined with rabbit fur.
Okay. I didn't see that closely.
Yeah.
Which is a testament to how I haven't mowed the lawn in a long time. Thank the Lord I have not mowed the lawn recently.
Right.
Because I never would have seen it.
Yeah, you would not have noticed it.
And that the kids haven't, like, run across. It's like in the middle of the yard. They haven't stepped on it, or... It's surprising.
There's a guardian angel that watches over bunnies.
Apparently. So, except when the hawk needs a meal.
Well, something like that.
So I grabbed one of the patio chairs and I put it over the nest so we know where it is and we don't walk on it. And we assume the mother will come back and...
Yeah, they stay away most of the day and then come back.
Feed the bunnies a couple times.
To feed the babies.
Yeah, so...
but they don't need to eat that often, baby rabbits. Not like baby humans that need to eat all the time.
Yes, yeah. So that was a little bit of a Wild Kingdom excitement for the yard. Yeah, we've been seeing, and we saw like the squirrels had a nest over our yard.
Yeah, the squirrels have a nest up in the tree that one of the hammocks is tied to. Actually, both of the hammocks are tied to that tree. In fact, today I was sitting in the hammock and I saw a small squirrel run into the nest. And it was definitely not an adult squirrel. It was little. It was very cute.
Yeah. And they haven't been eating the garden.
No?
The garden is in pretty good shape. I'm a little concerned about some of the tomato plants. Their leaves are turning yellow.
The basil's looking kind of sad.
Yeah, I don't think the basil works there. What we need to do is to read up on, what kind of conditions each of the plants need, where they should be, how much water they should get.
Oh,
You got to know this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's not just stick it in the ground, make sure it rains on it every once in a while. I mean, there's a thing. Like I totally forgot about the whole trimming the bottom foot of the, once the tomato plants reach 3 feet, you have to trim the bottom foot of it, all of the branches off, so that they don't rot from the ground. Anyway, but the tomato plants are covered in tomatoes, which is great. They're all green.
The kids have been picking the cherry tomatoes and eating them as soon as they turn red.
Yeah.
Sometimes before they're fully ripe, but
they have been bringing me occasional offerings, so that they don't just eat them all.
And they've been munching on the snap peas, and
those are pretty well picked over.
Yeah, very well picked over. And what else? We've been eating the zucchinis and the cucumbers.
Yep, those have been going well. There's
a few green beans that are getting close to being pickable.
They're taking forever. There's green peppers. There's a couple of green peppers. The eggplants are flowering, but they're not producing fruit. So I don't know what's up with them.
Yeah, the eggplants don't love me.
And then the romaine lettuce. We've harvested a couple of those. Those have been okay. There's one more that's I think about ready. It's about to go get past ready, I think, very soon. So we should harvest that one. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I'm with the garden as it's going. So we'll see how it progresses the rest of the summer. Speaking of, we'll talk about the cucumbers in a minute. But first, I want to talk about something that the kids have not discovered really, because they've been doing it a while, but something that they've picked up recently as something to do more often, which is using Google Earth to go exploring. And Bella was the one who kind of started this most recent trend.
Yeah, she likes to, her favorite things have been to navigate around like places where we actually drive. So she'll use Google Earth to get to Uncle John's house.
Right. Or to go to the farmer's market.
Right. That sort of thing. So she's done that. But then she's also discovered that she can wander to other places in the country. And she realized that she can actually use Google Earth to go into museums. So she's been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Art Institute of Chicago and wandered through the galleries looking at pictures.
Yeah. So there's been a program where I don't know if the museums do it or if Google does it or some sort of cooperative thing, but I
think it's a cooperative thing.
Yeah. So Google, they send a team in with the cameras and they take high resolution photos inside certain places, buildings, cultural places, museums, obviously, right. But even concert halls and stuff. Yeah,
we've done Hagia Sophia. You can go into that via Google Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wander around inside. There's like a 360-degree view.
I wonder if like St. Peter's is...
I think there might be. I'm trying to remember.
That. Yeah. But it's so Bella's been doing that, and she and Sophie have been doing it together on her Chromebook. And then Anthony, was it Anthony or Ben who wanted to get in on it?
Ben.
Right.
Ben had been occasionally using Find My Friends on his phone. He realized that he could do kind of a wander the map.
Right.
But not
because he doesn't have the map
view.
Application on it. That's right. Clever boy. So he's got a phone that doesn't have phone service. It's just a glorified iPod Touch. But yeah, it's got the Find My feature on it, so he can do that. But then he wanted more. He wanted to do what Bella was doing. So I put Google Earth on one of the iPads, the newer iPad that can do it. And so he's been exploring. Where's he been going?
I know they went to Fenway Park.
Yep.
They went to Bar Harbor, Maine.
Yeah. Sydney Opera House.
The Sydney Opera House.
I had to find Sydney for them on the map. Where's Sydney in Australia? It's right there. Or there. No, wait. I thought it was over there. Maybe it's down there. My Australian geography was not as good as I thought it was. But part of it was because I was looking at it upside down. That's my story.
It is a bit harder to do upside down.
Yeah. But they love well, it's funny because I play Civilization, the game Civilization, and they like to it's got all of these landmarks in it, so they like to go see the real landmarks from the game.
Oh, is that why the Sydney Opera
There's a
House?
Hagia Sophia in the game. There's a Sydney Opera House in the game. There's So I think that's how they're familiar with them anyway, these places.
But it's really cool. I mean, how often, do you get kids to like sit around and do geography lessons for fun?
Just doing it on their own.
And they've also been looking at the atlas, I've noticed, when they don't have the access to the iPad.
Yes. I will maintain that an atlas or any book of maps that you can get is an invaluable resource for bored kids.
Yes.
I used to love the National Geographic maps. In fact, I still have some in my file cabinet, my favorites when I was younger, because I'd love to just open them up and just look at places. Just love to follow, like, where would you, if you were in this? I mean, I kind of still do that now when I'm reading a book and it references real places. I will look at a map to see it. Like, I want to see the place.
See, that's never something I did as a kid, but I enjoy it now.
Yes.
But I don't think I spent a lot of time looking at maps.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. In fact, I would, every time they had a map, I would put it up I would replace the map that was there, the National Geographic map, and then put the next one up. So every time there was a new map, I'd put up their new map in my bedroom.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like, I still remember the Arizona one. I got to know Arizona really well because it was a few months before they had a new map in the magazine.
Right.
I used to love National Geographic. It's gotten so PC in recent years. Maybe it's not as bad nowadays, but it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not enjoying it. It's not about the same things that I loved as a kid. Now it's all this other stuff. But if it were about that stuff, I would love to get it again, because I just love that exploring the world aspect of it, seeing the world in new ways that I'd never thought of before. So. Yeah,
we should get a new globe, because our globes, we've had two and they've both died.
They both get destroyed.
But having a globe, right? Having a globe is really invaluable too, because it gives you a different perspective than just a flat map or an atlas.
Yes. And speaking of flat map, that's the other thing we have is a big map of the world on the wall centrally in our home, which they use constantly, either in their games or just like, we mention a place and they'll run over to the map to see it on the map.
Right. Yeah, and it's a map that sticks directly to the wall. It's like a cling film, and it also works as a dry erase, so you can use the dry erase markers directly on the map, which is great because they'll play games and like
they've divided the world up.
Yeah, they've played Empires where they divide up the world, and
again, civilization.
I've seen them drawing ships sailing across, and we've used it for learning about time zones and that sort of thing too.
Yeah,
it's great.
It is great.
Everyone should have maps.
Yeah. But I think
around.
A nice globe is a really good thing to have if you get a place to put it and it won't get destroyed. So
maybe we should try again. Maybe they're old enough now not to destroy it.
Maybe
one can hope.
One could hope. Before we get it, I want to think of a place where it will live. That's the key. So let's talk about food. We've been cooking a lot of the same things recently, so it's nothing really all that new. But you did make a new dessert, or not really. I mean, you made a dessert this week.
It was new. It was a new take on a old friend.
That's right.
So yeah, we had some peaches that had gone kind of mushy, and I wanted to do something with them. And I've been trying to clean out the freezer and sort of eat through things that have been in there for a while. And one of the things that we had in the freezer is a lot. I save stale bread crusts and ends and things, and I use them either for croutons or breadcrumbs for recipes that need breadcrumbs, but also for bread pudding. And so I don't know, I was craving bread pudding this week for some reason, and it wasn't too hot to turn on the oven for once.
Right.
So I found a recipe for bread pudding it was a blueberry bread pudding with a peach topping. And so you cook up the peaches separately in a skillet with butter and brown sugar and cinnamon and nutmeg. And then you spoon that over the top before you bake your bread pudding.
And the bread pudding is just, like you said, the old bread.
Right. So this one, you make a custard. You heat up some milk and cream until it's simmering but not boiling. and you add some vanilla and sugar to it. And then you add eggs to it slowly. Like you gradually add
You temper in the eggs.
You temper in the eggs. And then you soak your bread for like an hour in that custard mixture. And then you put it in a buttered baking dish with some blueberries mixed in and the peach topping. And you cook it in the oven in a water bath. So you stick your big 13x9 in a bigger roasting pan that's half full of water. That keeps the custard from overcooking.
Yeah, burning, becoming scrambled
This
eggs.
was so good. We had some duck eggs that we'd got at the farmer's market, and I used those, and they I think, added a little extra richness, too.
Yeah.
And that peach topping is the first time I've ever done peaches in bread pudding, and it was amazing. I'm
not usually a fan of peach desserts. This was really good.
I love peach desserts.
I know. That's been a cross to bear, but this was really good. This is a peach dessert I would eat again because it was really good. And the thing I love with the bread pudding is that it's really like it taking just scraps of any bread, bagels,
right?
Like
what drives me crazy is when I'm looking at recipes for bread pudding is how many of them start with like a fresh loaf of bread that you cut up and toast in the oven, and they like give the equivalence for like a loaf of bread. But my bread pudding is like, it's got some of a baguette, it's got some old bagels, it's got some multi-grain sandwich bread.
Yeah.
I had some brioche rolls, and I just cut them up all into chunks, and it all goes in and gets mixed up. And so when you're eating it, it's like different textures.
Slightly different. I mean, everything gets soft in the custard, but yeah, it's just it's not a uniform texture. It's a variety of things, but it's homogeneous because of the custard, because of the flavors. It's not like, ooh, weird, I'm eating rye bread now, and now I'm eating a baguette. That's weird. Like, no, it's really homogenized as far as flavor goes, and it's really good. It's a great way to like if you have bits and ends of bread, to save it instead of tossing it or throwing it out to the birds.
Yeah, my mom used to, before she was married, she worked at a hospital, and she said the hospital used to make bread pudding with all the stuff that they didn't sell the day before, and they would include like donuts and croissants and all sorts of things in their bread pudding.
I mean, I can't imagine having leftover donuts, but
right. But if you're a cafeteria, I suppose that there's flavors that.
No, yes, a cafeteria I could see on a commercial or institutional level.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great way to use up old bits of bread, and when you have kids, you frequently get the kids who don't eat the heels and the crusts and things. And yeah, when they were little and they didn't eat the crusts of their cinnamon toast in the mornings, I would totally save the crusts and make them into bread pudding.
Well, that's what bread pudding came from. It came from using up, stale bits of bread. So that's all we're doing. We're just continuing. We didn't invent anything. This is the way it always was.
Right. The weird thing is to use fresh bread for it.
When you said like, we had to find a day where it was not so hot that turning on the oven was, ugh. This is why we need an outdoor oven.
I would love to have a big outdoor bake oven.
Oh, me too. One of these days. So the other thing that we actually had left over from last week, or hanging over from last week's episode, was we had made the pickles.
Oh my goodness. They were ready to eat yesterday.
We were waiting all week long. We're like,
every time I opened the refrigerator, I saw those jars of pickles in there, and oh my goodness, they looked so good.
So refreshing people's memories. The pickles were, the cucumbers from the garden, onion, jalapeno, some radishes. Do we put carrots in?
No carrots.
Okay. So, and garlic. And garlic, right. And then the brine. The pickling juice was homemade pickling spice mix, right?
Right.
With allspice, cloves.
Some cider vinegar and white vinegar and cinnamon, cloves, allspice, turmeric. It was really flavorful.
It's so flavorful. So the moment of truth, and there was plenty of sugar in it too, so it wasn't all like bite and sharp. But no dill, because neither of us really like dill.
No, I dill.
So and again, it was based on a recipe given to us by a friend of mine, Tom, who was I know from Scouts, and he had given us a jar last year of his pickles. So this was kind of built off of his recipe. And so we got it open, and oh my gosh, the pickles were still like the cucumber pickles were crunchy.
They were crunchy,
but super flavorful, spicy. They had a spice.
Definitely spicy.
Everything was good. The jalapeno slices were good. The radishes. I wish the radishes were a little bigger, so next time we'll make them a little bigger.
They were fairly small radishes.
Yeah. So maybe like just cut them in half or something, throw them in, so there's more to bite to them.
Right.
They were just hardly there. The garlic was a little strong to eat straight up.
It was. I think next time I might mince the garlic more or make it smaller. I think I would go the other direction. Bigger.
Because the smaller the more you cut it up, the more you're releasing the sulfur compounds into the brine. So I would leave the garlic cloves bigger. In fact, what you might even do is simmer them in the brine. Because the heat will breaks down the sulfur compounds.
Right, that would make it milder.
A little bit milder. So it would do that, and then so actually what I do with the garlic is I would put it on top of the cucumber, so it kind of mitigates some of the sharpness of the garlic. But so good straight up, really good with a beer.
Oh yeah,
this is why they serve people like some bars serve spicy pickles and like pickled eggs and that sort of stuff in bars, because pickle vinegar goes really well with carbonated beer, cold beer. So we ate most of the jar, one jar in one afternoon. I had some with lunch
today
because I had some of that leftover steak, and the fattiness of the steak really cut the spiciness. Like that combination was they kind of helped each other.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was really good. So the rich meatiness of the steak was a good complement to it. Great pickles, and we have two more jars, but we'll keep making these too, because this was.
Yeah, I think maybe we need to make some more like next week.
Yes,
so that we don't run out.
Right, we cannot run out of these pickles ever again. We might need a pickle fridge. Because if we had a basement, where we had a cold storage. This is why people like cold storage in their houses. We don't have any storage, so that's our story again.
Because then we'd have to like do the canning thing and stuff.
Well, that's true. Which we've done before.
Right.
It's a lot of extra work.
But these were refrigerated pickles.
Refrigerated pickles, so which makes it easier. I mean, I acknowledge that. The canning is a lot more work.
It is work.
Yeah, I have a cousin who cans tomatoes, and it's a huge, all the family doing it together deal that they do at the end of the summer. So, yeah,
it's impressive.
It's impressive. I'd love to do it if my whole family wanted to do that. That would be great. But that's not happening. So that's what we've been eating, and so let's talk about what we've been reading and watching. I haven't been watching a lot of new. I didn't watch any movies this week, I don't think. I did want to follow up on reading, which is last week we talked about how you read the latest Dresden Files novel by Jim Butcher. And so I have started the Dresden Files, and I've now read the first two books, and I'm on the third book now. So it goes quick.
Only 14 more to go.
Well, at this pace, I'd be done in it by the time number 17 comes out in September. I mean, this is
it's a quick read.
Yes, I'm already 20. I started today, and I'm already 20% into the latest book.
Yeah,
where he has met Father Forthill and the Catholic knight Michael, who keeps asking him to go to mass and to marry. That he should marry his girlfriend. That the lead character, the wizard Harry Dresden, should marry his girlfriend. No spoilers, but it's good. It's definitely not for kids.
No,
and it's
no.
not. It's like there's violent content and there's adult situations.
Yes.
So it's definitely not for kids. And I squeamish, really.
Right. If you don't like violence and you don't like dark.
You're fighting the forces of evil in a very personal way.
Right.
Yeah, vampires, demons, ghosts,
Werewolves.
werewolf. I love his sense of humor.
It is so fun.
It is fun. At one point, he meets a vampire who assures him that she's not going to bite him because she's on a diet, and he's like, a vampire diet. Do you want a Blood Light? Which I thought was a great pun. So yeah, it's and each one gets better. The first one was a little rough. The second one was a little better. The third one so far is better a little bit more. So it's interesting. I'm continuing on because I know how much you and other people I know love the series. So and you keep assuring me how much better it gets as time goes on. So the books are, the series is like 20 years old. There's 16 books now, 17 if you count the one coming out in a month and a half. So yeah, I mean it's a book series that evolves. So I'm happy with it.
Excellent. I'm very happy because I love it when when we read books together
and we talk about them,
and we get to talk about them.
Yes,
it's fun.
Yes, we did that with the Stephen Sterling Changeverse series of books, and then we did that a little bit with the Guy Gavriel K books.
Right.
I have not read as many of those, but I've read some of the best ones.
Yes.
So let's talk about the thing I watched. Then we can talk about what you've read and watched.
Okay.
Because we watched this together actually, which is my brother turned me on to this Facebook page, YouTube channel featuring this old Italian guy named Pasquale Scarappa. Now you maybe have heard of him. He's got something like 250,000 followers on YouTube. He's got 1 million followers on Facebook. He's been making videos since 2008. This guy is it's like my mom's age. He's like a year younger than my mom. He's from Italy. He's got the accent. He's got the...
Oh my gosh, he has the accent that I thought was overdone in
an
TV.
overdone fake accent.
Like overdone fake. Nobody actually talks like that except he does, and it's so cute.
Well, that's the thing is it's a Neapolitan who came to America accent.
Yes.
It's a nice day to pick the basil.
You get it to basil, and yeah.
So first, cute old Italian man. Cute old Italian man can get away with anything, frankly.
This is true.
I'm looking forward to that, especially if they have an accent. My dad's the same way. He reminds me a lot of my dad, in fact, except my dad doesn't have the off the boat accent.
Right.
So he was a chef in Italy and then in America for most of his life, and he retired in the early 2000s and was looking for something to do. And he and his son started these YouTube videos where he makes a recipe, and so he cooks out of his garden. He makes these recipes. They're accessible. They're not restaurant recipes by and large.
They're like they're Italian home cooking recipes.
And he does like one a day.
And not only Italian though. Like today we watched the ceviche recipe, which is
he did a shrimp ceviche.
Ceviche is Spanish.
Yeah, South American,
Mexican,
Peru.
Peru.
I've
had Mexican ceviche. So,
yeah. I mean, it's spread from Peru,
right?
But yeah, it's known for starting in Peru.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know. And so, and he's done a lot of different cuisines, but his home base, of course, is the Italian cuisine. And he's got all the quirks. He says he drinks wine. He says chin chin salute, and he has his hot peppers that he calls his oh yeah baby hot peppers.
Oh yeah, oh yeah baby.
Oh yeah babies. Because when you bite into it, you go oh yeah baby, and that sort of thing. So it's really good. I enjoy watching it. The kid and it's something I can watch with the kids, and they enjoy watching it. The food looks amazing. I want to make everything he cooks.
It makes you want to cook.
He does have a couple of series of videos that aren't cooking, but are just like other things, like him telling stories of growing up in Italy during World War II, for instance. And then there's a series that I watched a couple episodes of videos where he went back to his hometown, Orsara di Puglia, which is like northeast of Naples, sort of in the middle of Italy. And he goes to visits the people. He talks about the places he lived and where he went to school and all the hijinks he got into as a kid. And he talks about helping out at the olive farmer, the guy who did the olive oil. in the stones, and how the kids would sneak hunks of bread in with them and dip it in the oil when the guy wasn't looking, and just
oh my
eat it,
gosh,
like, right there,
fresh pressed olive oil.
And he's like, but you got to make sure you didn't leave any crumbs in it, because if you let crumbs in, it would ruin it. It would go moldy and go bad and ruin the oil. So you had to be really careful and not get caught either, because the guy would be really mad. But he's like, but it was so good, we would do it anyway.
Kids.
And there's like a big feast of St. Michael that they do there, and so they were there for the feast of St. Michael, and so they got to see like the people in the church and the praying and the parade. And the Italians, when they have a parade, it's like crazy, like a feast day parade. It's so like tacky and over the top and funny, and it's awesome. It was great. So I recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and obviously I like to cook and eat and am Italian, so that really hits a bunch of things for me.
Right. And this week I watched something that was like particularly
within your wheelhouse.
Within my wheelhouse, right. You didn't actually watch it with me, but that's okay.
Well, I was working.
You were working.
Yes.
But I saw on Facebook an ad for one of my favorite plays, which is The Weir by Conor McPherson. And I read and studied it when I was in grad school getting my degree in Irish studies. And I saw a performance of it back in like 2002, something like that. So this was for a production that had been
a play
in New York City. Had been like, I'm not on Broadway, I think, but off Broadway probably.
I'm fairly certain that doesn't like a Broadway play.
Although I think it actually did go to Broadway at one point.
Oh wow.
Anyway, it's not a new play, but
so it's a new production that they filmed during the lockdown?
Yeah, so they were it was on stage before the lockdown, and then after the lockdown started, they got permission from the playwright to perform it and release it on YouTube. It's not released on YouTube. So you have to get a ticket to watch it. And you can watch it for free, but they request that people make a donation of $25.
Right.
So it's sort of a voluntary donation. You like drop in your money at the door sort of thing. But you
was it live or was it recorded?
Well, this is actually what I couldn't figure out, because it said at the beginning that the actors were doing the performance from various places, like it told you where each actor was.
Okay.
But it wasn't 100% clear whether they were doing it live right now or they had filmed a live production and you were watching that.
And was it like Zoom? Were they staring at the camera the whole time?
Well, this was really nice because each person was obviously in
a different place.
I mean, they were in different cities and some of them were in different states. But they were green screened with a background. So as you log in to YouTube with they email you the link.
Yep.
You log in and you see what's like the interior of an Irish pub. Lots of browns and sepia tints, though it's full color. And with a countdown clock telling you how long till the performance starts.
Okay. And
the sound of wind howling. So you feel like you're in a pub with howling wind. And then guy comes in and he walks into the pub and he's green screened onto the background.
Okay.
And he goes up to the bar and he pours himself a drink. And then another guy comes in and they each have sort of a zoomed in version of the background that you see at the beginning. So each person is in a different part of the pub with that part of the pub as their background.
Okay.
And then as they move to different areas with the different backgrounds.
Okay.
So it was really well done. It felt like you just had a really tight close up on everybody. But there were parts of the play where they were actually passing things to each other. They pass each other a cigarette or a drink or money. Or one time a character throws the car keys to another.
So there's someone obviously off screen tossing
stuff.
Yeah.
So it really felt believable that
So
they
just
were
no wide shots.
just no wide shots. It was like a very like watching a play that had been filmed, but for some reason the camera never goes out to the broad angle.
Okay.
Which, at first it kind of felt a little bit weird and the green screen was a little bit rough on the edges. But after a while, it's no more taking you out of it than like being in a theater and seeing the head of the person in front of you. Like you kind of...
Right. Or seeing the edge of the stage or...
Right. All the things that you see, like you just kind of ignore them once you get caught up in the action and you don't notice that stuff, really. And there's a couple places where you're like, oh, look, he passed the cigarette to him. And that kind of takes you out of the action just a little bit because like you're noticing the trick.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I would suspect, because you haven't really said anything about what the play itself is about, but I would suspect that the claustrophobic shot probably added to the feel of the play.
It did. So the play is about 5 characters who are in a pub in Ireland, in a small town, rural Ireland, at night on a very windy, stormy night, and telling ghost stories. So the play opens with a lot of chit chat, like talking about the weather, talking about what's going on. These are obviously people who know each other very well. They live in the small town and have lived there all their lives. And then there's one newcomer. She's the single woman in the room, and she's just down from Dublin, and she's renting a cottage from one of the fellows. And so there's all of these, like these guys obviously have histories and tensions. All of them but one are bachelors. So you got 3 bachelors, 1 married guy, and a very young, beautiful young woman. Mm-hmm. You can see that there's going to be some tensions going on. And in the monologues you get the discussion you get at the beginning, you realize that there's some tension between one of the characters and the married guy who comes in with the girl. Like, he's married. How come he gets the young, beautiful girl to come in with him? We can't get girls into the pub.
Right.
Sort of tensions.
Because he's married. That's why.
Because he's married. Right. But there's all sorts of, so there's these characters who have this rich history with each other, and then the newcomer who comes in, and there's a lot of the dynamic of the single girl in the pub with all the guys, which is kind of awkward and weird. And I've been there. The girl in the pub surrounded by a bunch of Irish guys, right, who are all drinking heavily. And I mean drinking, like they like pints of Guinness, pints of Harp, lots and lots of whiskey. Lots of whiskey. These people were putting it down. And so you understand like why the stories kind of get flowing, because they're putting it away. Anyway, it's a really beautiful play about loneliness, about connection, about the way stories can kind of create these connections and draw people out.
But structure around Irish ghost stories.
Yes.
The real Irish superstition,
there's one story that's kind of focuses around fairies. There's one that's about like a graveyard ghost story. They're really, really good stories, and it's just the structure of the play itself is beautiful.
So people could go to YouTube and watch this?
No,
it was just a one-time thing.
It was, you had to get tickets before the performance, and your ticket, they made it very clear, like, your ticket is for this performance. You can't pause it, you can't come back to it.
It was a live it was live stream, whether it was live to tape or live to live.
Right, but it was not something you could access later.
And there won't be another performance.
Right, they ran it, I think, Wednesday through Saturday, so maybe it was actually the live performances. I mean, they did like 5 shows plus a couple matinees.
That sounds like it.
Right.
But if you can catch it somewhere else, I mean, I wonder if someone even made a movie or something of it.
I don't remember if I think some of his other plays have been made into movies. Anyway, he's one of my favorite playwrights. I really love Conor McPherson, and if you ever get a chance to see The Weir, it's a brilliant play. I love it. And that was, so what I wanted to say is I actually watched it with a friend. Like, I had a theater date.
You did a watch party.
My friend was in Ohio. So we were two people in two different states watching a play that was being filmed in another, place. It was a very virtual experience. My friend and I both had Facebook Messenger open and were chatting with each other before, during, and then after the play. We did a nice, let's talk about the thing we saw. But even during the play, we were occasionally making comments to each other. It was kind of fun. And I almost felt like I'd been to the theater, except I didn't have to get in the car and drive anywhere.
And encounter people. The introvert's dream.
Right? And I had my mug of tea and my bread pudding, and it was very cozy.
So what did you read this week?
What did I read this week? I read a historical novel, a juvenile historical novel that a friend had recommended to me. It's set in the Middle Ages in England at the time of Edward II. The title of the book is One is One. And I cannot for the life of me remember the author's name.
I'll get a link in the show notes.
In any case, I read some of the author's note, and she basically said she had this idea of what happened to the misfits in the Middle Ages, the people who just don't fit into society. And so that's really the core of this story. Is the main character is just this misfit. He doesn't fit in. He's born into a knight's family, but when he was a toddler, he was bitten by a dog, and so he's scared of dogs, and he's mocked by everyone. Mm-hmm. So then what does he do with his life? You don't fit into your family, you don't fit into your society. And it got really sad. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I can continue with this story. But I really, really liked the way it resolved.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I think my friend who recommended it kind of said the same thing. She's like, I'm not sure I can recommend this yet. I'll get back to you when I finish it. And I can understand why, because there were some times when I was like, I don't know if I like where this is going, and I don't know what's going to happen here. But in the end, it was really worth the trip.
Okay, good. So we'll see where we are next week. I may have just read another Dresden Files novel.
I'd be willing to bet on it.
All right. So let's finish out by talking about our experience at Mass this Sunday. And this Sunday, it was your turn to go. We're still working on getting the whole family to Mass at once, but it was your turn to go with the kids. And it was a nice surprise.
Nice surprise, because the priest who said Mass today was formerly assigned to our parish several years ago. He's a Cape Verdean priest, and his bishop reassigned him because he's actually belongs to the Diocese of Cape Verde. He was on loan to the Diocese of Boston.
Because we have a large Cape Verdean community in our parish.
Right. And so he's
in Rome.
He's been in Rome the last couple years.
I think he's being groomed for bishop.
Right. He's been studying, and he'll make a great bishop because he's a wonderful priest. So he was here a few weeks ago. We talked about going to the special 4th of July Mass, and he was at that Mass, which was also the July 5th is Cape Verde's Independence Day. Yep. And evidently he's been sticking around. He said, maybe you're kind of surprised to see me. And we said, yes, we are.
Well, I think he's probably having trouble getting back to Italy with everything closed.
Right. I would imagine that I think Italy is not really letting
people come from
America right now. So he might be trapped here.
Yeah, he might have to go back to Cape Verde for a while or something like that. Who knows? But
who knows if Cape Verde is even letting Americans in right now.
Well, he's not American, but he's a citizen.
But
planes, sure.
Planes.
So
traffic.
Anyway, the one of the things that was always frustrating when he was here before is he's a wonderful homilist.
Really good.
But his English, I think he feels like his English isn't up to par, because whenever he would celebrate Mass, he would let have one of the deacons there, and these are American-born English-speaking deacons, and they would do the homily, the gospel and the homily, and he would never do the gospel and homily, and and the few times he had done it, I've always enjoyed his homilies, so I was always frustrated.
Especially because, sadly, not all deacons are the best homilists, and the particular deacons would frequently...
2 out of our 3 deacons, not the best homilists.
Right, and so it was kind of frustrating
because they're not as good as Father Irino.
It was kind of frustrating because I always felt like Father Irino would probably give a much better homily than the deacon, but we just, we
don't come to Mass just for the homily. So,
but this was a treat because he did give a homily today, and it was really top notch.
So, just as a reminder, the gospel this week was on which was it? Matthew, right?
Matthew.
From the Gospel of Matthew, and it's Jesus' parables about the kingdom of heaven.
Right, 4 parables.
Yeah. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field. The kingdom of heaven is like a
merchant in search of
fine pearls.
Pearls.
It's like it's a pearl of great price. That's the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, collecting fish. And actually, there's only 3.
No,
what was the 4th one? It's the net, the pearl, the treasure in the field, and that's it. I kept going. What is the 4th one? Oh, the head of a household. Sorry. Then at the end, Jesus comes back and like, did you understand it? Yes. Okay, let me tell you another parable.
Right.
Just in case you aren't being completely truthful. So here's another one. So the kingdom of heaven is like a head of household who brings from his storeroom both the new and the old. So he didn't actually talk about that last one. He talked because that's part of the extended gospel. There's also a shorter gospel, and I think he just talked about the shorter gospel today. And he really, as you were saying earlier today, one of the things you liked is he didn't start with, this is what the kingdom of heaven is.
Right. He talked about, his intro said there's 4 parables, and the way to listen to the parables is to not start off with thinking about the kingdom of heaven, but to start off just listening to the details in the story and letting the details speak to you rather than jumping to sort of what's it mean, but really letting the story itself unfold.
Right. So like he said, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds and hides again, and out of joy goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. And he's like, okay, so what do we know? And then I should read the other part. And the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he finds a pearl of great price, he goes, sells all that he has, and buys it. He says, all right, so what does this tell us? The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure. The kingdom of heaven is hidden. The kingdom of heaven brings joy. And the kingdom of heaven is worth more than everything we have. Right? So those 4 things. And so, when and then you stop to think about it, and you're like, it's hidden. We have to seek it out. We have to find it. The kingdom of heaven is not something that we're gonna. It's not just obvious to us. And then the question is, what does it mean, the kingdom of heaven? And he talked a little bit about that, didn't he? Like it's the kingdom of heaven is God's presence in our lives as the guiding principle, as the motivation, as the source of what good there is, a source of good, the source of life in our lives. The kingdom of heaven is the reordering and the changing of our lives so that it's not about us, but about God. And so it's a treasure. It's valuable. It's wonderful. When you find a treasure, you're excited. It's the best thing ever.
But I also liked he talked about how like the merchant is in search of pearls. This is his life's mission, is to go out and find these beautiful, valuable things. And yet, he must have amassed quite a few of them, like a vast collection of beautiful pearls.
Right.
And yet when he finds this one that is
the perfect one,
that
no pearl could possibly surpass.
Right. The ultimate one. All of the rest become like
dross,
worthless in comparison, and he sells them all. He gets rid of everything he owns
because you will never find, like, the search is over. There is no better pearl. Like you don't keep looking for other pearls. You're not going to buy any more. This is it. This is the one. You've reached the top, the pinnacle. It's like when you met me, Melanie. So anyway, her face. I wish you could see it. So he sells everything. And what Father Erno points out, it probably didn't happen in a day. Like
it probably took time to sell off all of his stock,
and he had to stay dedicated to the task. I've got to sell this stuff. I got to sell this stuff because I've got to get the pearl. I've got to get the pearl. The pearl is my goal.
Right. The perseverance and the persistence to divest himself of everything that he had in order to be able to go out and buy that pearl.
It's like the treasure buried in the field. That guy didn't stumble on it. He didn't like walk into the field, doop. Oh, what's this? It's buried. He was looking for it, like the merchant.
And why is he digging in somebody else's field?
Well, he didn't want to buy the field until he knew the treasure was there. Like I think there's a treasure in that field, but I'm not going to buy the field on the hope that the treasure is there. I want to know that the treasure is there, then I'll buy it. So he's like out there in the dead of night digging.
Which, if you think about it, like, what does that say about our relationship with God? That there's something kind of almost wily and cagey about the guy who's like,
yeah, he's
off digging in someone else's field. When he finds the treasure, he reburies it. Then he goes and sells everything he has to buy the field.
He's being smart about it. Being smart about looking for the kingdom of God. Not just like, dope-da-dope-da-do. I'm going to get the kingdom of God. It's going to fall out of the sky in my head. I'm going to trip over it while I'm walking through the field. No, he's looking for it. Just like the merchant was looking for the pearl of great price. He wasn't just waiting for it to show up at his doorstep. He went out searching for it. Or the fisherman who's fishing. He's throwing the net out. He's not waiting for them to jump in the boat. You can't just wait for them. Like the old Italian grandma telling her son that the girls aren't going to just come knock down your door. Go for looking for them. The fish don't jump in the boat. It's an old Italian parable.
I don't think I know that one, but okay. I didn't have an Italian grandmother. What can I say?
I didn't hear it from my Italian grandmother, but I've heard the story. But so I do like the fact that the guy does rebury the treasure and then buys the field. He doesn't just like, I found the treasure. Whoop, nobody will notice this is gone. And take off with it.
Well, right. There's an integrity to actually, he buys the field. He doesn't just take the treasure. Like,
he's not stealing the kingdom of God.
Finders, keepers, nobody will know where I got this treasure. It's
he has a legitimate claim.
Although, as soon as he shows up with the treasure, the guy who owned the field before is going to be saying,
where'd that come from?
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, did I not mention I dropped that in the field a few weeks ago? Yeah, sure you did. I bought the field. It's mine. Like, he has an uncontested claim on this treasure. No one can say that's not your treasure.
Right. I mean, he kind of legitimizes his possession of it.
I mean, he was kind of squirrely the way he found it. He made sure it was there, but there's no, like, the other guy could have removed the treasure before he bought the field, right? There was no...
If he'd known it was there.
If he'd known it was there, or if he thought to look for it.
But, it kind of... I've been thinking... We've been reading the daily lectionary readings, the kids and I, every day. That's part of our schoolwork. And we've been talking a lot about Jesus talking to the scribes and Pharisees. And a lot of the parables have this basic... If you knew what you had in front of you... If only you knew, you're so blind. The at the judgment day, the men of Nineveh are going to rise up and say, you had something better than Jonah. And the queen of the south is going to come up and say, you have something better than Solomon, which actually today we had Solomon.
Right. The first one was Solomon.
I think that pairing is not accidental. Jesus is something better than Solomon. He's something better than Jonah. He himself is...
He is the pearl of great price.
Pearl of great price. And here he's talking to the scribes and Pharisees in parables. And one of the readings from this week is the disciples ask him, why do you speak in parables? And he says, because there are people who are just not going to understand what I'm saying. And so here we have it much more explicitly, like...
Yep. So the people of Israel, or the scribes and Pharisees, they have the pearl of great price, the treasure, right here. It's right here, right in front of you. You can't see it.
Right.
You're not looking for it.
But those who've been looking for it, let those who have eyes see, let those who have ears hear, he says. And here we have the merchant, the man with the field,
the fisherman.
These are the people who have eyes and can see. They have ears and they can hear. They're out hunting for it. And these are the first disciples too. These are the people who were hunting. Peter and Andrew were disciples of John the Baptist. And when Andrew finds Jesus, he goes running to Peter and he says, I found him.
Well,
I found the one we're looking for.
And then the reading ends with, then every, do you understand these things? Yes. Then every scribe who has been instructed in the kingdom of heaven, i.e. you guys, is like the head of household who brings from his storeroom both the new and the old. The old is the covenant that you've been given, that you're still carrying, that you're still holding on to, which is good. And the new, what I'm giving you now.
Right.
So every scribe who has been instructed in the kingdom of heaven, you guys, you're like the head of a household who brings from his storeroom. A storeroom is where you put your valuable things, both the old and the new. Get it? Get it? Like, I can just picture Jesus going, get it?
Right. I mean, I feel like as we've been reading through these parables and Jesus's teachings about the kingdom, you kind of feel this building almost frustration as he keeps trying to find more and new and different and better ways of saying the same thing over and over again, trying to get through to them.
Right.
And they're so blind and they're so deaf and they're just not getting it.
Right. So anyway.
And then, then I have to wonder, like, what am I not getting?
Well, there's the thing. We can't just be pointing fingers. We have to now look at ourselves. Are we the scribes or Pharisees in any way? In many ways, we are. If we're honest. So,
right.
So great homily from Father Erno. Thank him very much, and hopefully his discommendation will be our treasure that we'll get to hear him at Mass.
Right. But yeah, again, I just want to say I really liked the fact that he not just unfolded the parables, but he kind of gave us the key.
Yes.
Pay attention to the details.
Pay attention to pay attention to the Gospels and the details. So let's wrap it up there. We want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Mary F., Dustin P., Timothy B., Amanda F., and Jacob W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So if you'd like to give us any feedback, comment on our discussion, you can let us know by commenting at sqpn.com/bets, that's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to bets@sqpn.com. Relevant links from our discussion, including links to the books and other the Facebook channels and that sort of stuff, those will all be in our show notes at sqpn.com. If you can, we really greatly appreciate it if you write a review at Apple Podcasts and share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community of listeners. The show gets better the more people that listen. It's a fact. It's proven. I'll show you a study sometime.
Okay.
Until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.